Very happy to have with me today the AEW Tag Team Champions, Austin and Colten, the Guns. Welcome to Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations. So happy you're with me today.
Yeah,
Woo!
thanks for having the champs on, man.
Come on,
Excellent.
man.
Excellent. So, Austin, we'll start with you. The Guns are at the top of one of the deepest tag team divisions in pro wrestling history. How pleased are you to be where you're at so early in the run? And do you think the Guns have only kind of scratched the surface of where you're going?
Yeah, I think when it comes to me and Colton, you can't deny how hard we work on and off the screen. It's like when we're on, we make the most of what we're given. We've been doing that for a year. You put me in the crowd, you put Colton in the crowd, we make the most of it and we steal the show. And then when it comes to work ethic, right today, when we got in from a red eye, we went straight to practice at flatbacks. And then tomorrow we're going to go to flatbacks. And then we're going to go there until we go to the show for Wednesday Dynamite in San Francisco. It's just, we've been working so hard for a year, and people don't think we work hard just because we're second generation, but we've been working hard behind the scenes. And me and Colton's goal from the beginning was to win the AEW Tag Team Championships. And we just keep proving ourselves right, that we're doing the right things and moving in the right direction. And we're only combined, we're only 2.5 years in when it comes to experience. Colton has shot up past everybody in the history. When you think of the history of wrestling, when somebody usually starts, they don't get their time until they're like 7 or 8 years in. And we have the AEW Tag Team Championships, and he's only 1.5 years in. It's insane. It's in our genes. Our last name is Gunn. It's just we're writing history already.
And Flatbacks is with Sean Spears and Tyler Breeze. That's their school.
Yes, it is.
Great. And Colten, you've had a long partnership and then a rivalry with the Acclaimed. And obviously, your dad is also involved in that story. What has that rivalry and that series meant to your career?
Meant to our career. Well, it's just unfortunate. We were friends and we started coming up. We were kind of at the same place, and we were friends, and they just did some bad things, and so did my dad, and just some things that me and Austin could not forgive. And we had to take the most important thing away from them, and that was the AEW tag titles. And we did exactly what we said. So that whole thing after this pay-per-view is kind of in the rear view. I'm done with it. We did what we had to do. We beat them for the tag titles, and we once were friends and now we're not. And that's the end of it. That's all me and Austin will say about it. And we are done and moving on after we beat them again.
And Austin, when you won the tag team titles, what did that win mean to you guys? What did you kind of think about when that moment happened for you?
Well, me and Colton, we always like to check in on podcasts and listen to podcasts just in case, from we're listening to veterans just to see if we're doing the right things. And then, of course, you can't ignore Twitter. Everybody hates us on Twitter. Everybody hates us on Instagram. And just sometimes over time, you look at that and you go, am I doing the wrong thing? Am I doing everything right? And then I look at Colton and go, hell yeah, we're doing the right thing. So it's just like when I was pinning Bowens 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring, and that crowd went silent, and I looked at their faces, and they were just like, we ripped their hearts out. American's top team, just AEW's top tag team that everybody loved, and then add my dad onto that. He had a chance to pick right and choose us every single time when it comes to our childhood, when it comes to us in the ring, when it comes to us versus the Acclaimed. He had every chance and opportunity to come on our side and be with us again, and he dropped the ball. He chose wrong. So the only person I can trust in this business is Colten. And when I saw that whole crowd just us rip their hearts out, it was the best feeling in the world. It's the best feeling in the world because all our hard work just goes into one moment and we finally get the tag straps. Come on. You can't stop us now.
And I feel like some of the reaction to you guys, like you said, it kind of shows you you're doing your job correctly, because you're eliciting a reaction from an audience, whether it's cheering or whether it's heartbreak, like you said. Colten, how do you shut out that noise and just try to kind of keep your nose to the grindstone, get better all the time?
Because all these people always want to take shots at us, but they have never done anything in their life. So they're just going to sit there on their couch and
Never.
talk about us. It's just because they hate greatness. You know, they see I started 2 years ago. I'm already a tag champion. We're, we're not letting their favorites win. Like, their life is not a fairy tale. Like, we are just really good at what we do. And that hurts them. We're athletic. We're strong. We're fast. And we're really good. And that just really hurts them, because the people that keep talking bad about us, like, that'll never be them. And that's just sad. And they're going to project that on us. But we know that we're really good and we have the championship. So that's that.
And Austin, I wanted to touch on this with you. What made you fall in love with pro wrestling and want to do it yourself? Obviously, we know the family history, but everybody's got their own path.
Yeah, in college, I tried to do the business route and try to work with numbers and go just like what my friends were doing and majoring in, and I just couldn't do it. That's not how my mind works. And then one of my friends told me I should major in elementary education, and I ended up doing that. And I was working with the kids, and I was having a great time. I've just always been an entertainer at heart. So when I was in class, they all knew I wanted to be a professional wrestler. So sometimes I was just like, or at least give it a try. So when the day I graduated, that was the rule from dad and my mom, was to graduate college first. So I did something fun and animated and made the classes fun for my kids. I was teaching second grade. And then the day after I graduated, I called dad and I go, I want to try this. I don't want to be 45 years old down the road and be like, man, I had all the opportunities and all the tools there to at least make it work or try to make it work. And I never took that opportunity. So I just jumped right in, and the day I graduated, he beat me up for 3 hours. And after practice, I said, I'll see you tomorrow. And then after that day, I said, I'll see you tomorrow. And it just kept going. And I fell in love with it. Me and my dad actually debuted together. And I think it was in Valdosta, Georgia for my first match. And everybody came out. And once I hit the curtain, it was just natural. I was a natural from the get-go. And being a second generation, you're always going to have everybody they want you to fail. They want you to fail so bad. They're sitting back and waiting for you to fail. And it's just, Colten came into it, and just, man, once Colten came into it and we started getting into groove, we looked at each other and go, we've been dreaming about this since we were 8 years old. And we took that leap of faith, and now we're here.
And obviously I know the wrestling story takes you different places with your dad, but your dad has a resume second to none, in the industry, and also just is a genetic wonder of the fact that he's 59 years old and still doing what he's doing, and faster and stronger than some of the people that are 25, 30 years his junior at this point. So with such a famous pro wrestler as a dad, how much did that kind of influence the decision? We'll go to Austin first.
Influence my decision on pro wrestling?
Yeah.
Well, I think just growing up in that environment, when you're meeting The Rock when you're 8 years old, and he's letting you beat you up backstage, and meeting Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Undertaker, and you're surrounded by the entertainment business, and there's good that comes with it and there's bad that comes with it. But when you mature over time, you go, oh man, this is just the business. You're on the road 24/7. And now me and Colten are getting to experience that every single week. We just hit a red eye. We were only in Phoenix, Arizona for 6 hours because of delays and cancellations, but we made it. We're at Dynamite for 7 hours and then hit a red eye and then went straight to practice. So like, now I understand what it takes to be in this business and really put your heart into it. So yeah, there's bad that comes through it, but when you're growing up around the entertainment business, and then you have the personalities that me and Colten have, you kind of just get a good feel for what this really takes. And everybody from the outside looking in is going like, yeah, I could do that. That's so easy. But when you're in the mix and you're trying to balance everything in your life, plus hold these tag straps and these tag team championships, and now you're even on more of a pedestal, and everybody wants you to fail even more. And you're second generation. It's just, you don't understand the pressure that me and Colten are under, and how well we take it and how seriously we take this business. So man, when you're grown up around it, I think you're kind of morphed into the mindset of what it really takes. And then when you're on, you just take off, and you kind of just learn how to deal with it.
Well, congratulations on all you guys have accomplished so far. And Colten, kind of tell me about your path into pro wrestling. You're actually the older brother, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
I am actually. So it's weird. Like my whole life, I was teaching Austin things, and now he's been in wrestling longer than me, so he teaches me things. I kind of have to take a. It's weird, but yeah, my path was just a little different. I never really thought I would get into wrestling. I went to college. I graduated with finance and applied economics degree, and then I was building custom houses in Florida, and then I moved to LA and was doing it out in LA as well. So I was building houses for like Lakers players and Snapchat CEO and all these kinds of people. And I just remember Austin and Dad were starting at AEW then. And I would just be sitting in my construction trailer, like going over the schedule for the week or doing whatever I had to do for the day. And I would just keep thinking about like promos we could do or moves and names and all that stuff. I was like, I am thinking about this way too much. So I went out to a school out there, Rikishi. I didn't tell anybody. I went one day and I was just like, let me see if I get the bug, I guess, after one day. So I went one day and then I called my dad and I said, hey man, I just went out here. He was a little upset at first, but I didn't tell him, but he's like, well, if you want to do it, you got to come home. So I took off 2 weeks from work, came home, went to Flatbacks and ran a couple classes. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So he's like, all right, well then you have to come back and give it 100%. So I went back to LA, packed up my truck. I drove to Orlando, started training at Flatbacks, and was on AEW Dark 12 weeks later.
Wow.
Fast forward a year and a half, and I am the tag team champion. And you
Yeah,
can never take that away from me. So
yeah, I think if I could touch on that first part when Colten says, like, even though I'm teaching him things in the ring, like, you always worry about whether your tag team partner is going to mesh with you. And that's kind of tougher when it comes to family as well, because like, it's like I couldn't go and pick up somebody else and be my tag partner. That would be really weird. So like when me and Colten first started, yeah, I was teaching him things in the ring and stuff like that. But Colten has always had a great mind for psychology and everything when it comes to that side of the business. And when it comes to physical and like kind of like camera angles and where positioning and all that kind of stuff, I think that's where I pick it up. So I think it's kind of like peanut butter and jelly. It's like me and Colten mesh and have our pros, and I have my cons where he picks up, and then his cons is where I pick up. So it's not one's better than the other. It's we mesh pretty like really, really well when we both put our attributes in play, I guess, if that makes any sense.
I'd agree with that from the outside. It's very complimentary. You know, you guys, the best tag teams always complement each other. So, and you guys certainly do. So, Austin, the rise of the Guns of the Gun Club really took place at Daly's place during the time of the empty arenas. Was it difficult for you to know what was working and what wasn't? And what did you kind of learn the most during that time?
When it comes to the crowd work, and when I was in the crowd, I was actually injured at the time with a torn PCL completely. And that happened in my debut match at AEW. And when I got signed coming through the curtain, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be injured for 6 months. So I need to find something that I'm good at. And being loud and obnoxious and supporting somebody as like a crazy fan is exactly in my wheelhouse. So I drag Dad out there and I go, if we're not going to be on TV, if we're not going to be in matches getting better, at least we're going to go support the boys, watch our opponents, which we'll have in 6 months. And me and Colten and Dad just sat out in the crowd and just gave it our all for 18 hours when we were filming Dynamite, Rampage, Elevations, Darks, and trying to figure out that whole system. I was out there the entire time screaming. So when I started first getting picked up on Twitter, like, who's that very annoying kid? Who's Colten? Who's Austin? Who are these kids that are being really loud? It kind of gave the fans a chance to see our personality before we even stepped into the ring. And whether you hated us or loved us, you were going to hear us no matter what. And I was going to be on TV no matter what. So when it came to the crowd, that's kind of how I looked at it. It's like, if I can contribute in any way, this is how I'm going to contribute. And then it just snowballed into this. I'm taking Sheeta's jacket, and I had a certain thing with every single wrestler. So when it came to in-ring in Daly's place, that's when me and Colten were kind of really still figuring out how well we work together, what moves we like to do, how do we collaborate, how do we bounce off each other, how do we make the best of this situation, and that was kind of just trial and error. And like I said in multiple interviews before this, it's like we're learning on the go, and that's even more pressure. We're having our first in-ring promos on the go. We're having our first live TV matches together for the first time on the road against people like Jurassic Express, FTR, and all these major teams on live television. We didn't have any practice. They said, "You're having this match, 12 minutes, get after it." And we do. We deliver every single time. So it's just we've been put in crazy situations, and we always turn it over and deliver every single time. So that's something the fans don't ever even think about, is we're learning on the go, and we crush it every single time.
And also with the crowd, another thing that we were able to do, like we were sitting front row for a week, for a year, I guess, and we were just studying every single wrestler. We saw them front row every single week, and we got to study them, know their moves, know their tendencies, know everything about them. So while we were cheering, we were also studying and learning them. And I think that's something that nobody else has that we do.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's almost like a live tape study that you have right in front of yourself if you're an athlete. And
Yep.
so, Colton, those are some of your first matches. If I'm not mistaken, your first match was in AEW. So was it kind of key for you at that time to get the reps? I know, Austin, you said you went down with the injury, but then Colton, you were teaming with Billy. What did that time kind of look like for you in terms of your own development?
I mean, it was I was I was thrown in the deep end and just asked to swim. I mean, yeah, my first match was on AEW Dark, AEW television. Like everyone in the world can go see it. Everyone can go on YouTube and look at my first match ever, and it's for AEW. And I've done a couple indies here or there, but basically all my time has been spent in AEW. And people forget that. Like I've only been doing this for 2 years, a year and a half, and like I don't know, the development was great because when we were still on good terms with my dad, him being out there with me taught me a ton about just slowing down, staying in the moment, stuff like that. But yeah, Daly's Place was good for us and for me. And it's weird because everyone hated the pandemic, but if it wasn't for the pandemic, I don't know if we would be in the position that we're in now, because I wasn't signed or anything, and I was driving up to Jacksonville from Orlando, which is drivable, and I was just in the crowd, and then I got to work, and it worked out for me. The pandemic worked out for me in a great way.
I got a kick out of watching you guys in the crowd and others too. There were a lot of different regulars that were always in those audiences. I watch everything, so you pick up people, you try to spot. Okay, where's Austin in the crowd on this one? Where's like Tesha Price on this one? Where's Kylan King over here? But you end up kind of even if you're not into a match or whatever, you're trying to spot what the other participation parts of it are. So I certainly got a kick out of it from seeing it. Austin, as brothers, do you guys have an advantage other teams don't have? Were you close before tag teaming, or has this brought you closer together? What does kind of being in a brother tag team mean to you now?
Yeah, I think if you're a tag team wrestler and getting in the tag division, I think you want somebody that you can trust and that you've known your entire life. I think that just adds on to the relationship that you guys have when it comes to in-ring work. It's me and Colton don't even have to talk to each other when we're in there, and it's when you look at the Young Bucks, I mean, you see how well they flesh together and they work together, and their relationship is so good in the ring. And I think that's because they share the same blood. And I think that it's something you really can't explain. It's like when you see twins, it's like they communicate without any verbal or anything like that. So when we're practicing together, we already know each other's moves, each other's movement, and what they're thinking in that moment in time and what we need to get accomplished. And it eliminates having to communicate. And I think that's where we have an upper hand in other tag teams, is because they're probably still getting to know each other. They don't ride together to towns. They don't travel on the same plane. Me and Colton live under the same roof. So we are literally with each other 24/7. And I think not only on top of being with each other 24/7, we share the same blood and we're brothers and we've known each other our whole life. When you add that together, it shoots us light years ahead of other tag teams.
Excellent. And Colton, having a pro wrestler as a father and also a coach in AEW, I'm curious how that helps, and also just curious of what other career mentors you guys might have at this point, either in AEW or elsewhere.
So yeah, so like I said before, we were on the outs with my dad.
Yeah.
Everything that I was thinking, I would tell him and ask for his feedback. Everything. And coaching, I mean, he's like you said, he's 60 years old and still going, and still probably has the best physique in the business, not just in AEW, like in the business.
Right.
It's actually insane. So when we were, all a team and getting along and everything, that was just a wealth of knowledge I could go to whenever I wanted. And it really, really helped. And sometimes we didn't see eye to eye, and I would try it my way and it wouldn't work. And I'd have to swallow my my words and everything, and then realize he was right the whole time, which kind of sucked and hurt. But yeah, I mean, it was a great resource. And then now we are very close with every coach in AEW, and we always ask for their advice. But like Dean and Jerry Lynn, BJ, I'm sure QT, I'm sure I'm forgetting a bunch, but like we always go to people and we're always asking for advice or how we can make things better or how we can get better. But I mean, at the end of the day, we're the champs now, so I don't really know if we need that much advice anymore, but it's nice to know it's there if we want it.
Yeah, definitely. And the thing I think I would compare with you guys most to your father, obviously he's had such a long body of work, but it's such a natural ability from both of you in the ring. I think I first saw your father in person at a WWF show in 1995 at my high school of all places. Actually, I'm trying to remember who it was. The Smoking Guns against like the Executioners or something.
I was 1 year old.
Wow, I was in high school, so
yeah, that's crazy.
But you go back to even watching him back then, and it's such a consistency, and I see that so much with you guys too. It's just how consistent you are in all of your work, whether regardless of who the opponent is or what show you're on. And are you guys seeing that? And is that also what you're hearing? I guess.
Yeah,
I think it's
feel it. Like I can feel it. Like right when I had my first match in Dave's Place, I was like, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like I made the right choice, and I can just feel it. And it takes people a while to like get their feet under them or know the spacing or timing. And I think you just subconsciously pick it up from, we weren't allowed to watch wrestling too much when we were little, but we were allowed to watch if my dad was on or something. And just like when we would go to the shows when we were little with my dad, and we just get in the ring, and subconsciously, I feel like you just know spacing and timing, where to be, when to be there. And I don't really know if you can teach that. I guess if you have enough reps, maybe, but I'm not trying to sound, yeah, I am. It just comes really easy to us. And it's just second nature at this point.
And that's why it moved so fast too.
Yeah.
I mean, because you wouldn't be where you are right now if it didn't.
Right.
Also, I think you wrestled in Ring of Honor for a little bit before coming into AEW. Anything from that experience that struck you and or helped you at all?
I'll keep that long story short. I hated my time in ROH, not because of my experiences, just because I wasn't ready to be on my own. And I had to move to Baltimore to go to the developmental system. And once I got there, I was living in a hotel for 6 months, and my whole schedule flipped upside down. I wasn't very independent by then. I wasn't cooking my own meals. I was overeating. I wasn't pushing myself to work out every day. I would lock myself in that hotel room. And even though I faced great opponents like Brian Johnson, Dante Caballero, and then in the main event, Dak Draper, man, it didn't feel like home to me. It didn't feel like that's where I needed to be. That's where I was supposed to be. But I think it ended up being a great experience because it showed me how fast things can kind of get out of hand if I don't hold myself accountable, if I don't work very, very hard and push myself. I didn't understand what it took to be in this business yet. And and then by the time I got out of there and then moved back to Orlando, I got myself in gear and ready. And then it took me 2 months to get ready for that debut of AEW, and I haven't even looked back. But I'm not bashing ROH. It just wasn't for me at that right time. And I was depressed and I was just not having a good time, and it kind of spiraled out of control. I called my dad and I go, "Hey man, this isn't working out. I don't think I'm ready to be here yet. I'm coming home right now regardless."
It's interesting too. It seems like you learned from it though, which is probably the most important part of it. So you put it on the list and you move on. So we're going to move on to something we call the 3 count now. It's going to be 3 quick questions and your answers. We're going to start with Austin. So Ass Man seems to be everyone's favorite Billy Gunn theme. Do you have a favorite Billy Gunn theme that's not Ass Man?
I would say the DX theme, if he's considered in that. I know it's a group. I know it's a group thing, but man, you can't get more iconic than the DX theme.
And Colten?
I mean, I would say the New Age Outlaws intro, right? Like everyone can say that word for word, so that's got to be the one.
I always enjoyed Road Dogg always had the rap at the beginning, but I always enjoyed how excited Billy was to say his line every single time.
Yeah, he couldn't even wrestle because he was so blown up from just one thing. He put everything he had into it.
It's fantastic. My friends and I used to impersonate it all the time too. So that's mostly why I enjoyed it a lot. So Austin, specifically, you mentioned before a real highlight in the crowd during the Daily's Place era was you. What was the best thing? What was maybe some of the best things you heckled a wrestler with that you'd be able to say here? And did you have a favorite target?
Singing. All right. I'm sick of it by now, but singing Chris Jericho's theme was the highlight because that was my time to shine. I would just belt that out. And whenever he came on, I knew I was ready to rock out. Now I want to throw up every time I hear it because I heard it so many times. But that was pretty fun. I loved taking Sheeta's jacket and wearing it during her match and being her cheerleader. That was fun, supporting her. Those are probably the 2 highlights. Everything else I just did on the fly, whatever came to mind.
That was fun. And Colten, who for you was who was the loudest wrestler in the crowd during Daily's Place?
Oh, the person I stood next to every week that would blow out my eardrums. Yeah, it would definitely be Austin. But also off that first question you asked, Austin, my favorite to heckle was probably Lance Archer and Jake Roberts when they would come out. Just trying to yell at them and like call them.
Eddie Kingston.
Calling them like it's the Murder Hawk, but we would call him like the Pigeon and I don't know. We were just like yelling at him. Those were my favorite tackles for sure. Nice. But yeah, Austin was the loudest.
Is there anybody that would be like an honorable mention of the crowd there? I really loved that.
Of the crowd, Fuego de Sol was pretty good, man. He brought the same energy as we did. He'd bring the snacks, so we were always fueled up when we were over there. And he'd just like sneak over a gummy worm when I was getting tired, and just like. Yeah, it was great. He brought so much energy in the crowd.
And then also on the other side was Ryzen.
Yeah, Ryzen.
Ryzen was good. He would feed off of our chance and try to get the other side to start in on him. So Ryzen's an honorable mention as well.
Yeah, Ryzen.
Very good. And last question. First, we'll start with Austin. Aside from Billy Gunn, who is your favorite all-time member of DX?
Road Dogg. Road Dogg has always been a fan of us. He's told us that from day one. Before he went back, he just sat us down and just told us everything we were doing right, everything we were doing wrong, and how to get it done. And I think when you see somebody like that you grew up with, idolizing, and also being like kind of your uncle figure, and then reminding you that everything you're doing is right and that you have the right tools to succeed in this business, man, he's always been so close to us and always really good to us. So yeah.
What a great tag team they were, and somebody who knows obviously a lot about a brother unit tag team too. With every combination of those guys was always solid. Colten, for you, favorite all-time member of DX other than your father?
It would definitely be Shawn Michaels. I mean, just the way he sells and everything about him. Everyone calls him the greatest in-ring performer, and that's what I find funny sometimes. Is like people be like, "Dude, they want to be Shawn Michaels so bad." And like every single, so if you think about it as in like basketball, like people want to be like Michael Jordan. And it's like, no one says that's a bad thing, right? Like, don't you want to be like the best? So, I would say Shawn Michaels. Just everything about what he does is phenomenal. And
it's funny too that Shawn Michaels, for him it was Ric Flair, and for his entire generation it was everybody trying to be like Ric Flair. And why wouldn't you want to be like that?
Yeah, I mean, you like definitely take things you like from everyone. You're not trying to blatant copy, but like, you want to be like the best. So why would? Yeah,
you want it to work for you. So
exactly.
That's the way it all works, I guess. So. Austin and Colten, the Guns, thank you guys so much for joining me today on Under the Ring Pro Wrestling Conversations. Just once again, there'll be an AEW Revolution, the pay-per-view Saturday, March 4th against the Acclaimed and Jeff Jarrett and Jay Lethal, and the winner of the Casino Battle Royal for the AEW World
Doesn't
Tag Team
matter.
Championships.
Yeah, our first defense.
Doesn't matter.
Team. Let's go.
Yeah, what a shocker.
Yeah. Always
Okay.
trying to kill Guns.
Congratulations on everything you guys have accomplished and are going to, and thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you. Thanks for having us on.